I'd like to call the meeting to order, and first we're going to have a meeting of the Special Administrative Hearing Board, which is a little different than our normal order of business. So we'll start off with the salute to the flag, if you'd all join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Ethan Turner. I'm the attorney that has been hired by the county to assist code compliance and the Planning Commission with marijuana-related issues. One of the parties this morning, Davis, withdrew his appeal to his citation, and the second has in principle agreed to a settlement and waiver of their appeal right. They're currently having a waiver agreement reviewed by an attorney. So I would ask the commission if they're willing to push this agenda item to the end of today's agenda so that their attorney can have an opportunity to review the waiver agreement and then hopefully sign it. And in the event that they fail to do so, we could have the appeals board heard then.
I just want to also point out to the commission that as written right now, the county ordinances that govern the administrative hearing board do, for whatever reason, require 4 out of 5 to both be present and to take any action on any item. I understand that there's a possibility that Commissioner Mutartes might not be here at the end of the day. So if you were to continue it to the end of the day and only 3 were present, we would have no choice but to continue the matter again.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the commission?
I think we ought to put it to the end of the calendar.
I agree.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Let the record show that all members of the Planning Commission and Administrative Hearing Board are here other than the chairperson, and hopefully she'll be along. The first item is the Davis appeal of code compliance citation. Who's taking care of that?
These are the 2 items that were just discussed by Mr. Turner. So now we need to adjourn as the hearing board and reconvene as the planning commission now. And then we're now on item B, the agenda changes. It's not really an agenda change, but just a notice to the public as well as the commission. Item number 7, this is a tentative parcel map in West Point. It's going to be continued. We got a recent revision to the map and need to do some further review of that. So that will be continued off calendar. We will send out a future notice on that. Those who are here because it is on the agenda, when that item comes up, have the right to speak on it. However, I would recommend that we wait until that item, action is going to be taken on that item after we have the revised map reviewed and conditions associated with that might be. So those who are here for the parcel map, item number 7, 2016-002, that will be continued off calendar, and notice of a future hearing date will be sent out to everyone on that. If you want people to sit around for several hours waiting for that item to come up, just let it be continued.
So who's representing code compliance?
Well, code compliant, the administrative hearing board would be basically the same individuals on the planning commission
Right.
who's sitting as that board. We have Mr. Turner from our office was appearing on behalf of code compliance, and as he indicated, we have one item withdrawn, one continued till the end of the hearing.
Okay. So in which case, we can adjourn the Administrative Hearing Board and then call to order the Planning Commission for our normal meeting. Okay. Are there any other agenda changes?
No, they're not.
Okay. At this point, we have a public comment period. If there's anyone here who wants to address the Planning Commission on any land use issue that is not on today's agenda, this is your opportunity. And be advised that anything that comes up at public comment period, we cannot take action on because it wasn't agendized, but it's a way for you to speak your piece.
We need you to talk into the mic. Nobody can hear you.
Okay, we have 2 items on the agenda for the consent agenda, both of which are approval of minutes. Do we have a motion on the approval of the minutes of September 1?
I'll make a motion to approve. Did you have any changes, Kelly?
No.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the same thing for September the 8th meeting. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Now we'll go on to public hearings. The first of which is 2016-1079, appeal of denial of commercial cannabis cultivation registration application for APN 40-24-2. Lorenzo, who's taking care of that one here?
Good morning, this is Miguel Contreras, Planning Department, taking care of 2016.
Can we have you speak up also? I'm getting people from the audience doing this to me that he can't hear him, now you.
All right, is that better?
Yes, thank you.
All right, perfect. Once more, this is Miguel Contreras, Planning Department, doing the appeal for 2016 10-79, or -1079. This is Young Appeal.
Speak up a little more.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is an appeal of the director's denial of a commercial cannabis registration. The denial was because applicant failed to provide demonstrable steps of cultivation prior to May 10th in the form of photographic evidence. The subject parcel is located at where Lorinda and West Murray Creek Road meet at a 6.16 acre parcel. The photos submitted by the applicant are date stamped April 21st, 2016. As you can see, there are numerous pots taken from many angles on the parcel. There's at least 42 pots laid out in rows. Though aerial imagery dated June 3rd, 2016 does not show any of these pots or rows on the parcel. Furthermore, the applicant submitted a receipt, and upon review of the receipt, it was noted that 159 pots were purchased April 30th, which is 9 days after the photos were supposedly taken. Here's a supplemental image from Google Earth, dated 5/31. And CEQA does not apply to projects when a public agency rejects or disapproves. Recommendation by staff is to pass a motion to sign Resolution 2016-034, denying 2016-1079, therefore upholding the planning director's denial of the commercial cannabis registration.
Is the appellant here? Would you like to speak to the commission? No? So, what's the pleasure of the board?
I have one question of
Yes.
staff. Did the applicant submit any evidence of the purchase of any grow pots prior to April 21?
No, that was the only receipt that he submitted.
Do you know whether the applicant has another grow site other than the one he's applying for here?
This applicant does not.
Have you received any explanation from him as to why the aerial photos of June 3rd do not show the grow pots?
On his appeal letter, I believe he stated that our county imagery is incorrect.
Do you have any reason to believe that that's true?
No, I have no reason to believe.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public on this issue?
I'm Joel Pitto. I have a case, but this is not regarding mine. In the final appeal to the board 2 days ago, my surveyor got up here, pointed out the illegality of what the county is using as maps, pointed out the errors in facts, and I don't believe that the board should pay full credence to anything this county produces in maps until they correct the mapping system. In my case, it was hundreds of feet off.
Yes, sir.
Morning.
Morning.
My name is Mike Stone, and I would like to address, I believe, your items 1, 2, 3, and 5 all concern parcels on West Murray Creek Road. May I speak once and ask that my remarks be considered in opposition to a grant of a permit for each of those?
I believe you have to stick to the agenda item that we're on, so you're going to need to speak to the one that we're on right now.
Do I need to speak 4 times, or
Most likely, because you have to go by agenda items.
whatever is preferred, I'll be glad to do, but I don't really want to repeat myself.
You can
over
get
and
up
over.
on item-
I don't think you'll find it very entertaining.
You can get up on the next items and just say ditto and sit down.
I owned parcels 040, 024, 007, 008 up on West Murray Creek Road. 007 is 168 acres. 008 is 68 acres. The remainder, if you will, along West Murray Creek Road, from which all of these smaller parcels were many years ago carved out and zoned out. Point being, every one of these requests for a permit to do a grow on one of these small parcels borders my land. I surround each one of them except for their access to West Murray Creek Road, so that their back border is my property line. Number one, in my opinion, as to any of these, including number one, I start with first, my concern is that the effect on my property values is to render my property value essentially zero. I don't know, that's my opinion, that the fair market value of a piece of my land would be worth nothing with a grow next door to it. I can elaborate on the reasons if anybody wishes me to, but that's my opinion about the effect of such a zoning permit if it was granted. Number two, These are undeveloped parcels. I've been trying to save money for years to develop up there and put a house on 7, but a bank or lender would be highly unwilling to loan money and entertain the risk if they knew that I had a marijuana grow right next door to the property that I wanted to develop. Again, that's my opinion. I have not checked with every bank in California, but nobody in their right mind, in my opinion, would lend for development expenses with a grow going on next door. Number 3, water. There's no water up there. There are no wells in any of these parcels. There's a gentleman named Randy Cimarelli who owns, I believe, 120 acres west of me, west of my parcel 8, who's got a domestic well for his land. The only rainwater comes off of the side of the mountain, off of 7, down into the low spot on 8, meaning my property. That's gone by the end of June every year. So if these folks thought they were going to take water out of a seasonal creek, number 1, it'll be gone when they need it most for the grow going on in July, August, and September. And number 2, they'd have to cross onto my land, and nobody's spoken a word about that yet to me, and I'm not going to agree to it. Number 3, to put in a well up there, one of these parcels drawing for an ag purpose would dry out that entire mountainside. The existing home sites would lose their water unless they dug deeper, and everybody would end up in a race to see how deep you could have a domestic well going just to supply their residences. Number 4, I'm worried about security. I was a deputy DA for 29 years. It's not uncommon in the past in Humboldt, Del Norte, and Trinity County for illegal grows. The sheriff's office find bodies up there, not unheard of, because they have firefights out in the forest over people trying to steal marijuana from a grow site. The only difference here is everybody's going to know where they are. I don't think that this is going to be something that they have spoken much with the board about, but if they're actually serious about growing marijuana up there, they're going to have paid security to protect it near harvest time, or they're going to face a lot of trouble. And I'm not sure if anybody has addressed those considerations with law enforcement, but in my opinion, before you ever approved one of those, somebody ought to, because it's highly unsafe for people up on that road. And then finally, I basically am concerned about the claims that I've heard bits and pieces about don't match what I've seen up there on the ground, but pictures have been taken and I realize that's been addressed. I'm not sure what these folks are actually trying to pull, but I don't think they're going to have success with the lack of water and the lack of power. And that's one more thing for me to mention. The closest PG&E line is 7,000 feet away from my parcel 7, which is closer to the power line than any of these. Randy Cimarelli runs on solar panels. He's independent. So unless they're using generators and cables, they're not going to have power to do any work up there, and they might start a fire running generators all day long. And in fact, I found news items to suggest that grows have already resulted in fires in Calaveras County. And I know people are already aware of that. I don't know what else to say except I support the denials on these parcels. I object to giving the permits, and I don't think any of this has been thought through very well. I don't know that they have any permits for business purposes, for development purposes, or anything else. And I know how expensive it is because I've been trying to save for years to develop a whole home site so that I could start building up there and get it developed. And they don't have any of that. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Can I ask a question? You're familiar with the area up there?
We go up there all the time driving through.
So you're familiar with this overview map area right here?
Are you
So-
familiar with the overview map?
The overview
Yes.
map right here?
Yes, I am.
So even if the property lines were off, that is the area that this person's applied for. So the area photo, even if the lines were off for the property, you would say that's the correct area that these people applied for?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
generally. There's West Murray Creek comes to a cliffside, does a very sharp, it's about 145-degree angle at the cliff right there. Starts down, back northeast, then does another very sharp turn past the gateway to parcel 6 and parcel 5. Dips down, the road to 4 is up on the left-hand side, and you basically go through 2 S-turns to go through past each of these parcels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm familiar with all.
So you're very familiar with the area?
Yes.
And you would confirm that that's the general area of this applied applicants?
Yes, this is,
Okay.
he's asking
Yes.
if it's a general area.
Correct.
Yeah, generally, yes.
Yes.
And the other thing you mentioned about the fence lines, until I can afford the fence, these gentlemen don't know where the property lines are either. They don't know when they're on. Mr. ROUX owns each of these 6 parcels. None of these gentlemen that have asked for these permits own the parcels that they're seeking to grow marijuana on. They must have some lease or rental arrangement with the owner, and you can't split those parcels without an environmental white paper that states all of the impacts and gets county and state approval. So what they're trying to do is grow marijuana on a parcel that they're renting from the owner. There are no property fences separating those parcels at all yet. They won't know when they're on their land or my land or somebody else's land without a surveyor up there marking more than what is up there now. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? That's not a member of the commission, but I just, the item before us is an appeal of our denial of their application based on a finding that we didn't see any evidence that cultivation had occurred prior to the date. Do you have have made any observations as to when cultivation started on this property? Do you
We
know
don't
the
know
date?
when cultivation.
No,
You don't
no,
know?
I would have to say, if I understand your question correctly, no, I do not know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does any other member of the public want to make a comment on this item?
I'm Charlene Heck. I'm Beverly Baldinger. And we live in Valley Springs. We're not real happy about your decision to let people grow marijuana and not doing your due diligence in better planning, let's say. But we have questions to ask these people. Questions to ask you today. You want to go ahead and read?
One of our concerns is, as this gentleman stated, these are absentee landlords. They don't live there. They're not impacted by what's going on. We are. We are directly impacted by it. We've been impacted within our own neighborhood by people coming through our properties in the dead of night to steal somebody's marijuana plants. And we are now resorting to cameras and everything else, which cost us a great deal of money to try to keep this element out of our neighborhood. Where the marijuana was being grown before, steps have been taken to remedy that situation. Police have been called numerous times, but our police department is already very overtaxed for our county. Both our sheriffs and our highway patrol, with a lot of others very serious problems. We just had a very large fire caused by a woman who was on drugs. This is a problem that's going to continue on and on and on. With the continuing on with more commercial grows. This that you're talking about with 4 commercial grows within one area, where's this money going to once they get it grown and completed, processed? Where's all this money going? And why is it not staying in our county? This county needs the money, but they didn't need the money from the revenue from marijuana. We needed the revenue from other types of businesses that we could have encouraged in. Now we won't have it because we have all of these marijuana grows. People don't like it. You had a small group of people come in here and say, we want cannabis, we want cannabis. But what about the rest of us that didn't even have a voice in this? And you gave them these permits. One small area, as this gentleman told you, 4 commercial cannabis grows in a small area. A very tiny area right there, considering our county. Why is that necessary? Where is that money going to go? And the people that are renting this property, are these U.S. citizens? Are they even legal California?
Residents.
Are they California residents?
Calaveras residents.
Or Calaveras residents? Do they live here? Or are they just staying here while their marijuana grows? And then what's going to happen to that property once they're gone? They've used the ground up and it's gone. They've cultivated, they've grown, they've picked it, and they're gone.
Left their trash, their garbage.
Their dead bodies. We're not liking this. This has not been thought through at all. And as he said also, we have no groundwater. We live in a town called Valley Springs because we had a lot of springs. Then all of a sudden we had an overgrowth of homes, which you put a moratorium on because all of a sudden then everybody moved out because there was no work here. People didn't like it. I've lived here for 20 years. And for 20 years, this is the first time I've ever come into this building or into any of your buildings to discuss the things that have gone on. But this one I'm going to stand fast on. I have illnesses that do not allow me to do a lot of stuff, but I certainly do not refer back to drugs to make my life better. These people, I want to know what they're going to do with these properties when they're done with them. And when they're done with them, who's going to clean them up and keep them maintained so that we don't have more fires like the Butte fires? Are there homes on those properties? If there's not, which this gentleman has stated there are not, where are they going to be living? You have a 2-week time frame that you can live on that property before you have to move on. 2 weeks per year that you're allowed to live in a camper, in a motorhome, in a tent. Then you got to move on. They have no septic. What are they doing with their bodily waste? I don't want that in my drinking water if I have a well. All of this is taking place, and I find it just really out of line. Are they giving anything back to our county outside their initial permit cost? And again, I go back to the question of why are there so many commercial grows? Where's this money going?
Where's the tax money going? Are they paying taxes here on what they're growing?
But these are tenants. These aren't owners. These are tenants. I have 2 pieces of property. I could rent that out and say, have at it, folks, but I want $1 million for that piece of property that you rent for the time that you're growing that marijuana. These folks are ready to give it to me because they're going to make more than that. That's what's obviously happening on this piece of property, on these properties, because you have an absentee landlord. So,
The other thing is, have you done any background checks on these people that
Can
got the permits?
Can I address you real quickly?
Certainly.
First of all, there is an ordinance for the county that was passed by the Board of Supervisors, not the Planning Commission. It's 17.95, and you can locate that on the Planning Commission's website under the Cannabis tab at the top. That will explain to you the ordinance that they passed that addresses waste, environmental hazards. It addresses the registration fee that they paid, how the registration fee is used. There is no tax currently on it. The county can't tax anybody. It has to go to the voters, and the voters vote for that. So that's going to be on your ballot in November. It's Measure C. That is the tax for this. If you choose to or not, you can look up Measure C and read through that. We basically are seeing the appeals because they apply for their permits through the planning department.
wasn't that kind of putting the horse before the cart? Or the cart before the
I
horse?
did not
I'm sorry,
vote
the
on
cart
the
before
measure.
horse?
Nobody in this room did. It was put before the Board of Supervisors. And I think that the best place for you two to get your message through would be to go to the Board of Supervisors meeting on Tuesdays. Not every Tuesday. You'll have to look at the agenda to see the next time they meet and speak to them during public comment. Because the ordinance, all of the questions that you asked, if you print off that ordinance, you're going to get most of your answers right there on how it's been managed and handled. It's our job here, whenever somebody appeals a denial by the planning department, to decide whether or not they met that ordinance. If they did, then if they did not, the county's denying their registration. They're not issuing a permit, they're issuing a registration. So I think that if you guys, if the two of you ladies go and you read the ordinance, I think it's going to answer 90% of your questions, and I think you need to probably address the Board of Supervisors with your public comment.
Okay, well, as the planning commission, what measures have you taken to see if any of this stuff has been followed through?
We are having appeal hearings whenever the planning department reviews the applications, and if they deny them and they're appealed, they come before us. And then we look into why the planning department denied it. If it doesn't meet the terms of the ordinance that the supervisors passed, then we do not uphold that appeal. Now, that doesn't stop there. They still have 14, 15 days to apply an appeal to the supervisors so they can go again for another hearing. Basically, our duty here is to uphold the policy that the Board of Supervisors passed on that ordinance. Did that answer your questions?
Somewhat.
Basically, we don't have a say.
You do have a say. And there were a lot of hearings. These rooms were packed at the Board of Supervisors hearings. There were a lot of people here. I understand your frustration, but it's still, and what the urgency ordinance is an urgency. They're still going to be working on a permanent ordinance. So it's not, and they'll have some things that they'll probably make changes to at some point in time. But the Board of Supervisors are the ones that are working on that ordinance. It's not the Planning Commission at this time.
Well, at this time, we agree with the gentleman that they should not allow them, after they've been denied, anything, period.
I will also tell you that during public comment period, just so you ladies are prepared, if you're going to go to the Board of Supervisors, they have a 3-minute comment period. So you get 3 minutes each. Here it's 5 minutes. So just so if you do decide to go forward, you know what your time limit's going to be, and they're quite strict on that. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Rick Polk. I've been a Calaveras County resident for about 25 years. I just want to speak on number one. They had a picture that said something about April 21st.
Yes.
Did you disprove that?
This
Was their
picture
time date stamp wrong on that one?
on
Wasn't it April 21st, which is previous to your May 10th recommendation? That one there?
Yes.
Were you able to prove that wrong?
Yes, this picture right here, taken June 3rd, proves
And you
that.
can't, with the eyesight, I don't see, there's no way those pots were in that parcel.
Correct.
From your,
Yeah, this is the county aerial
okay.
image.
And another thing, the people here understand the complaints, but if they'd have read that article, you said every question, every complaint they had is addressed in that. So maybe do your homework, save us some time. Thank you.
Any other public comment on this particular item? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission. What's your pleasure? Are you ready for the recommendation?
Yes.
Recommendations to pass a motion to sign resolution 2016-034, denying 2016-1079.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we do not support the appeal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The next item is 2016-1077, appeal of denial of commercial cannabis cultivation, registration application for assessor parcel number 40-24-6. Tom Jow is appealing the planning director's denial.
Is Miguel taking,
Could I ask you to speak into the mic, please?
Hello.
We want to hear what you have to say, Ted.
it's Miguel Contreras, Planning Department, looking into this as well. Just a quick correction on the staff report, page 3, paragraph 2, on the date's X'd out. That's because I wasn't able to get the exact date from GIS department. However, they've assured me that those aerials were taken late August, early September, but they haven't been able to pull the exact date. It's too much data to sift through. All right, 2016-1077 Jow appeal. Once more, this is an appeal of the planning director's denial of a commercial cannabis registration. It was denied initially because of failure to show demonstrable steps of cultivation based on the criteria of date stamp photographic evidence. The subject property is located 2 miles northeast of 5249 West Murray Creek Road. It's a 7.69 acre parcel. In the photo submitted by the applicant, there's a image of a water tank and fencing material. That picture is dated April 25th, 2016. Not only that, but there are at least 15 soil-filled pots, and those images are dated April 25th, 2016 and April 28th, 2016. None of this could be found on an aerial image. This aerial image was taken by the county June 3rd, 2016. Also, I've included a Google Earth image just because it has a better resolution. This image was taken May 31st, 2016. Furthermore, upon further review, the county acquired new imagery that was taken late August, early September. And in reviewing this, we noticed that a new cultivation site was erected, a new grading was done that wasn't in the original June 3rd image. Lastly, Mr. Jow states in his appeal letter that the county has provided him false and misleading information. I believe he's referring to a typo in his denial letter. The typo was basically the last number of his APN. On the original letter, it was 4, and the letter that supersedes that, it was changed to the correct APN. Once more, CEQA does not apply to projects when a public agency rejects or disapproves. Any questions?
Well, the applicant here,
Yes,
Well-
yes, easier.
Hold on one second. Can you go back to the aerial image, please?
This one?
So where you have it marked in red and in blue, what's the indicator on that?
Oh, yeah, the indicator on that is that in this particular image, the property lines are skewed significantly. So the red is to reflect the actual property lines, rough estimate.
What do you mean skewed? Where are you getting that from?
If you look at the assessor's parcel map book, which I don't have an image of, it shows that the property, the blue one on the bottom, is actually right above West Murray Creek Road. That little bend you could see on around the middle
Yeah.
is the same bend that you could see on the bottom of the blue line.
Okay.
So the layer that we have in our GIS system that depicts properties is based on the assessor's parcel maps. Those are not surveys, those are maps shown for assessment purposes. And so the best data that we have for approximating the property lines. But we know that those aren't surveyed, they're not linked. In some cases, they're stretched to fit the GIS system, so that the computerized mapping system, and so what we've done here is try to identify more precisely where it's actually located. Here it's off quite a bit because of just the inaccuracies of the assessor's maps and the way they've been spliced together and then stretched to fit the entire county.
Whether or not the grow is not part of the question here is on, whether or not the grow is on the property is not part of the question
not
there.
part of the question.
So we all can agree that whatever is happening there is on the property that they applied for right now. So
Right,
that's, the property line's not in question.
that's not a question.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
now, the applicant.
Okay. He's Tom Zhao. My name's Ken. I'm his brother-in-law. And that aerial maps, they take it on June 6th, which is that owner have many different lots there. They move things around because we move things around because we have to clear that path before moving back to put everything else, to put pots and all those things back. So basically that he take that's right on June 6th, but we have stuff there prior before May 10th. So that's why we move things around. Before May 10th, nobody knows that they can get permits or not. That's why they kind of camouflage it a little bit here and there. So that's why area map doesn't show. So after they clear the lots, then they move things back. So that's why that photo doesn't show. And everything out there, only dirt, no tree, no nothing, not even bird, not even ants out there. If you don't have these people here go out there and grow, how can your counties have a revenue? They pay tax for it. They get a permit to get everything else. If you deny them, they can't do anything. And they put a lot of money into it already.
Okay. So there is no tax. Nobody's paying a tax right now.
No.
No, there's no tax.
But they, they will get permit, willing to pay tax and everything else, city require them to do so.
Okay, and the ordinance was passed
Right.
for the May 10th deadline. because the grow had to be existing. It wasn't an open door for people to come in and put grows in. The grow had to be existing in order to qualify for the ordinance. So I understand what you're saying is, okay, we have all this stuff here, but the ordinance was designed to say if you weren't currently growing, they weren't going to issue registrations. So from what you're saying is, the grow wasn't there, but you had to bring it in and get it ready because nobody knew that May 10th was going to be the deadline. You're right in that statement. Nobody did know until the supervisors voted, but when they did vote, the ruling was May 10th had to be in, not June 3rd, May 10th. That's the way the ordinance is written.
I understand that part. But the thing is, certain products, if you put out there, if you put out there early, it doesn't work like, like everybody thinks it works. That's why they have to put out late. Because everything else is set up for before May 10th.
Everything was set up for May 10th.
Everything before May 10th. But the thing is, if you put early, there's certain stuff, you put early, it doesn't grow. Or it may destroy. If it hit too high, it destroy the plants. That's what they have to delay.
When we are reviewing these ordinances, one of the qualifying factors to prove that you were already growing was the land already had to be prepped, ready, and show proof that it had been growing. We understand if you're starting with small plants. We understand that. But you had to have the ability to prove that land was already graded. When I look at these two pictures and I see no grading, but then later in August, September, I see that the grading went in and the plants went in, that tells us sitting here today when we're looking at the ordinance, we have to rule on the fact was that grading done and was that garden in by May 10th or not. When we look at this, it was not. It was put in after the fact. That's what we rule on the ordinance.
I agree. I agree what you're saying. But the thing is, that's, I don't know when that's a picture taken. So that's what it show like that. Before.
So can you, when we're looking at these pictures and we're looking at the appeal, the application that was submitted by your uncle showed us pots on the property. Where are those? Where are they on those photos?
No, they move. They move around. That's why.
Where were they before it was moved?
Well, move to the lot, either 4 or 5 lot. Move the bottom. You check on the bottom left. Check on the bottom. You check on the bottom left right there.
So
we move everything there, so we prep some more. That's why. That's what they did.
So one of the and if I'd have to pull the ordinance out. One of the rules in the ordinance was that you don't necessarily get to move the garden unless it was within 75 feet or within 75 feet of the property line. That's when you get to move it.
Well, nobody tell us that because the owner said we can move it. This is also his property. So do you have this map so I can show you guys?
Sure.
Right there. So we moved down here because they're all stem owned. So that's why we have to move down there.
So you're saying the plants weren't growing on the property at all on June 3rd?
No, June.
They were off the property?
Yeah. But on June 3rd, we off before we put in there, not many, few of them only. So, we have to prep more land. So, we get permit, we do it properly. We do it legal.
We have
That's
this.
what, that's what we try to do. We don't want you to go out there and try to hide it.
Could you speak at the microphone?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
We don't want to go out there and hide it. If you hide it, then, where else you get the money? Be willing to pay the cities and, what city require us to do. We have, fence up, We have toilets and everything else. Doesn't have a power, but we have generator required as the city says.
And where's your water source?
We truck it in.
Okay, so you have storage tanks.
Yeah, we have storage tank, yes. Out there so dry, so have nothing.
Where do you live out there?
What's that?
Where do you live out there?
Yeah, we are on a mobile home.
Mobile home. So there's a mobile home there. Was there a house prior to the burn on that property?
Not that I know of.
Well, the ordinance requires that you provide evidence satisfactory to the planning director that no later than May 10th, you've taken demonstrable steps towards the development of a commercial medical cannabis cultivation site on the parcel, as demonstrated by criteria below, which is evidence of cultivation or grading. The words "on the parcel," to me, refer to the parcel that you're applying for the registration for. And in this case, nothing happened on that parcel prior to May 10th. And so that's why I think that what you have done here does not qualify under the ordinance. I mean, I understand why you did what you did, but we have to live with the ordinance as it was written.
That's what we're here to uphold. And I have to concur with Kelly on that. And the fact that if you have any question as to that, you could, if we so decide to deny this today, you could bring this forward to the Board of Supervisors and reappeal it to them.
Okay, but, yeah, we'll see what.
I'm good.
Ted?
Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to address this particular item? If not, we'll bring it back to the commission. What's your pleasure?
I think Mr. Sun wants to speak.
I think we have public
Oh,
to speak. Can we let the public speak behind you, please?
Well, again, my name is Mike Stone. I wish to ask that my remarks as to item 1 be added and incorporated into the discussion of item 2. I oppose the permit. I support the denial, and I'm asking for all of the same reasons to have all of that discussion incorporated here. With the following addition. Could I see that map on parcel 6 again? Yeah. You see the really sharp hairpin turn near the middle of the picture? Mm-hmm. That's West Murray Creek Road. And there's a diagonal that runs up more or less going up to the upper right-hand side in red that's part of the property line of parcel 6. My parcel 7 is everything south of that red line. The right-hand side, in other words, the property line that runs along 6 and 7, to the east of that, there's 800 acres of BLM land. I don't have any control of it. Neither does the owner of these parcels. Neither do any of these gentlemen. My parcel 7 is parcel 7 is on the other side, the north end of parcel 6 as well, because that parcel is only like 7.5 acres big. I didn't understand completely what the gentleman said, but it sounded like he'd moved with permission to parcel 4, which is completely out of that picture and down below to what amounts to the southwest. Parcel 4 is the 10-acre parcel, the biggest one of the small parcels, if you will. It's one big, giant, steep hill. It's extremely steep. Nobody's taken a mobile home up there. And I haven't seen a mobile home. There are no houses on any of these parcels. Randy Cimarelli is the closest house anybody has in that entire area.
Are there
Last-
trailers, RVs?
He is to the west of my parcel 8.
Are there RVs? Are they living in RVs?
We haven't been up there since the fire. We went up there one time.
We were called and told that there was a lot of activity up there, and one of the neighbors reported to me that he saw people with guns, and unless I have extra help going up there with me, I'm not going to take her up there, and
Okay,
I just don't feel I can.
thank you.
So there was no houses there prior to the
No.
burn?
There's no houses and no mobile homes. We had a trailer on 8 in the past that was vandalized and destroyed, and we had to have it hauled off. Couldn't use it anymore. There were no residences up there, and there's no permanent place to live. I bet they can hear me. Yeah, I don't, one concern that I had heard expressed was about where the money's coming from. And of course, I shared that, is that, some community group fund that's behind all of this. I don't know, but if I were your sheriff, and of course I'm not, but if I were, I'd be concerned about whether or not it's money coming indirectly from the Sinaloa cartel. Because if somebody gets on the phone today and calls the San Joaquin or Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Office, or Probation Department, their jails are full of people that have been arrested in the last month on grows, illegal grows.
Okay, I'm not trying to be rude. We need to stay on agenda topic here with this.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
I'll just add everything that I said before with
Noted.
permission to
We
this
got it.
document. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more public comment on this item? If not, bring it back to the commission. What's your pleasure?
Ready for the recommendation?
Recommendation is to pass a motion to sign resolution 2016-033, denying 2016-1077.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Deny the appeal. Next item.
So should we be reading into the record that they have the right to appeal to the supervisors?
That's always helpful. Yeah, we could do that.
We usually do that at the end of each appeal, and I just want to make sure that we're following the right protocol here.
Okay, now we're talking about 2016-1076. Another appeal for denial or application number, for our assessor parcel number 040024004. And you want to take it?
Yes, Miguel Contreras, Planning Department once more, for Appeal 2016-1076. This is an appeal, once more, appealing the planning director's denial of a commercial cannabis registration. Denied because of failure to provide demonstrable steps of commercial cannabis cultivation prior to May 10th in the form of photographic evidence. The subject parcel is located 0.2 miles northeast of 5249 West Murray Creek Road. It's a 10-acre parcel. As you can see, all photos were date stamped 4/22/2016. You can see numerous black pots, around 50. and the commencement of a PVC irrigation system. However, aerial imagery does not confirm that any of this was taking place as of June 3rd, 2016. On the right, there's a Google Earth close-up of the parcel dated May 31st, 2016. Furthermore, Mr. Toyd claimed the county aerials are inaccurate and misleading. That's why I provided that Google Earth image as well. In his appeal letter, Mr. Toyd states that he signed a lease agreement on April 21st, 2016. I guess he stated that as a way to show that he was cultivating prior to, or that the pictures are accurate, the 422 pictures. But upon...
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Go ahead.
He signed a lease as of 4/21,
Yes,
and the photos were taken 4/22?
correct.
So in one day, he put in 50 pots?
Well, not only that, but upon review of the lease was started 4/22 and executed 4/22.
Okay.
And once more, CEQA does not apply to projects when a public agency rejects or disapproves. Any questions?
No questions?
No.
Okay. Are you the appellants?
If I may, good morning. My name is Herman Frank. I'm an attorney from Sacramento, California. This is the appellant, Mr. Toyed, and he's asked me to represent him at this hearing today. I'm not so sure he has a right to counsel. So my first request is, may I speak?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate that. First thing I want to tell you is, some landlords are cool guys and say, come on, you can put your stuff on before you sign the lease. As remarkable as that may sound, that's exactly what's happened here. And had they asked him, he would have told them that. And if they really wanted to check it out, he would have said, call the landlord. And the landlord would say, yeah, you can bring your stuff out here. So we have a case here where you've got substantial effort toward cultivation on the property. Those photos you see up there, they are the ones that he gave them, they are accurate. And he did have that on 422. They just don't think it's true. But they don't, I wish they would ask him questions like, how could it possibly be true that you have a signed lease on this date and you had all that stuff there on that date? It's just physically impossible to get it out there. Well, that would have been a nice question to ask him. And his answer would have been, my landlord's a good guy. He said bring it out earlier. And that's what he did. So I just want to point out that there are some fairly simple descriptions or answers to all this stuff if someone would just kind of look into it a little more. And his is a case where we accept the ordinance as is, and we say he met the burden. So we've got, and if I may, a lot of actually what he showed is up there. But I would like to submit to this group a packet he has. And I'm doing this in part because I noticed your notice says you got to submit it here or you can't use it later. May I please submit this? It's his evidence in support of his current appeal. May I?
Absolutely.
Yeah, can you give it to Annette, please?
I'm sorry I only have one. But what I'd like to do, and I also put a mention there of where my name again, Herman Frank, and my location. I have one for me. I'd like to discuss some of the highlights. The first is that what came down from Department of Planning is a checkbox, inadequate evidence of cultivation activity before May 10, 2016. And his answer to that is, I have a lot of evidence of cultivation activity. And the pictures actually were just put up on the board. I appreciate that. Thank you. But those same pictures are here. And what they say to that is, it's a lie. Those pictures are a lie. You have to disregard them. Well, I don't know what to tell you. They're not a lie. That stuff was there. And you can see it's not a small amount. But by the way, that last one is for water. So everyone's concerned about you're going to use up all the water. They're going to bring it in, just like the other gentleman. I think that's kind of a common way of doing it. You can see what he's got there. I mean, I don't know what else you need. I want to make a comparison. Imagine a house permit where you told people, before we're going to give you a permit, we need you to excavate, survey, put in your foundation and your plumbing, and then we're going to see. I mean, can you imagine doing that? I mean, it'd be like, what? And one of the reasons, what you misunderstood, sir, and I'll try to correct you right now if I may, or just so you know what he was thinking, when he gives you the lease, you know what he's trying to show you? That he had to spend 35 grand to do that. And that's not a tax thing to your government, I appreciate that, but it is money out of his pocket. And that's real live money. And, you know, other people can say, oh, it's got to be illegal money. It's not. And if anyone wants to know about his money, where it came from, ask him. Well, if you did, you can just ask him, and he can tell you.
It's not
I
in
think-
question right now. That's not what's in question right now, sir. We don't need to ask.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. Well, I guess what I want you to please find is that those pictures are the truth. And that was what he had out there. And he has met your ordinance, and this appeal should be granted. Maybe it'll be the first one ever that got granted. And I'd like this one to be that one. I think they've proven it. And in his documents here, he's got...
I was just going through those
Okay.
pictures, and I can appreciate a lot. There's quite a few here. I see pots and everything, but I don't see any marijuana plants.
Well, you know why that is? Because you have a law that you can't cultivate yet. So this is kind of a chicken and egg problem. You're not allowed to cultivate until you get a permit. So what he's got, basically, is all ready to go. It's kind of like that phrase, all dressed up, nowhere to go. So what he does, he gets everything out there, gets it all ready to go. He's got his water source. He's got a power generator, by the way. He's got all that ready to go. But I don't think he's allowed to grow.
What's that picture of?
What page is that, please?
26.
Hold on, I'm right there. What's that?
The roof.
That's a roof. Sorry, it's a bad.
Was there something growing in that pot prior?
This was because of, we was granted a permit to grow, so we proceed with that. And then when you denied our applications, we chopped it off because we had the letter. 10 days.
So you did that post abatement. Yeah, that's your abatement move. So what you're saying is there were marijuana plants in there, and after you got the denial letter, you cut them down?
Yeah, because you guys approved us, so we could.
There, somewhere in our packet, there's
What's what his lawyer was just saying.
permit approved June 28, 2016. There was some permit that was approved.
Right here, this one.
Well,
Application.
I don't think there's even permits been issued at all yet, so.
Well, I have a document, it's on page 5, that
Okay.
they have understood to be some kind of green light. It says notice of application pending. That's not a permit, I
Right,
understand.
absolutely.
All right.
That's the way I would understand it.
So I would also point out that he does have a seller's permit from the California State Board of Equalization, and it looks like the taxes that he would charge would actually go to the state, not you folks, but I hope there's some way it gets back to you. In any event, I just want to point out that this ordinance is a little interesting for me, you know, being on the outside. I'm from Sacramento, so I've never heard this whole thing, and I appreciate there's kind of an anger I can see among the neighbors, and there's a fear that kind of reminds me of those marijuana posters of the 1940s, you know, where you're just going to go down this terrible path.
Reefer madness.
Yeah, reefer madness. I see reefer madness here. I do. And I'm a little bit embarrassed about it. I mean, this is 2016. It's like, come on, people. You know what I also see here?
So I'm going to stop you for just a second because I've got a couple of things I want to address with you.
Please do. Thank you.
Okay, one is you talked about, can you imagine getting permits and surveying the land before you build a house? Yeah, that's what we do. Can you imagine all of these gardens going in and we never surveyed the land and we never permitted grading and we never approved it? That's what we are dealing with. We are going at this, but you said chicken before the egg. That's exactly what we're dealing with because these gardens were put in without permits of any source, without grading permitting of any source, and our county had to say, okay, land grab. We have to stop this land grab. And so if you were currently growing and you can prove it, then that's what's going to be allowed in our ordinance. But we're not going to allow futures. So What you're describing to me, as your client has done, as many others, is that, okay, quick, Calaveras County is going to allow people that were growing by May 10th to get a registration. So all these people jumped in and tried to get in. The intent of the ordinance was if you were currently here and currently growing, those were the permitted ones. So the analogy of getting permits for building a house, yeah, that's right. That's the way it should be done. So I can imagine it. That's how I would expect this industry to be handled, and hopefully going forward into the future, things get handled the proper way, because this is backwards. We have allowed these grows, and we are registering these grows without proper permitting. So now what we had to do is put a stop in place. We now have to go back, register these sites, inspect these sites, go through code enforcement, bring the building department out, look at their electricity, look at their water. We are put in a position of acting in an opposite role of what would be normal in the state of California. So I'm having a hard time with that argument. The reason the May 10th was put there, so that you have an understanding, since you're from Sacramento, you didn't understand, is that we had a land grab happening in our county of people trying to jump in and throw a grow in, and it was taking over our county, so we had to do something to stop it and regulate it. We put the supervisors put policy and a regulation in place for us to deal with. As we sit here as the Planning Commission, we have to follow that ordinance. That's what our job is. Was the grow there by May 10th, or was it a hurry up and throw a grow in? We're not seeing evidence that as of May 10th, the garden was really there, the grading was really done. What we're seeing is everybody hurried up, came in and tried to grade the land quickly and throw a garden in. And that's not what our ordinance states. So that's where we are put in a position of, and I understand you saying that we should be granting him the first one. But we're not in that position. We're in a position of having to deal with what was existing, not what was trying to come in. Our ordinance was put into place to stop trying to come in and deal with what's here. I'm sorry, I'm ranting.
No, I thank you, first of all, for explaining that, because I would love to have been here when the ordinance was passed, and I do realize that it's not your job to undo the ordinance. I would like to say, though, that I don't think this county believes in medical marijuana, because if you have that restriction, it's like you can only get a permit if you were growing before. Well, what about people who are, remember, there's a state law allowing this. Remember, state law trumps local law.
State law only currently, until November, if 64 passes, only allows for personal and caregiver. It does not allow for commercial until 2018.
And your ordinance doesn't even allow that, and that was the problem. They were trying to do 99.
Sir,
Okay.
our ordinance is allowed to be stricter than MRSA.
Yes.
Yes, and MRSA is different than your original Prop 215, as I understand it.
I would like to clarify a couple of things. One is that, yes, the county can be more strict, and many counties have banned cultivation entirely.
Right.
We enacted an urgency ordinance that froze cannabis cultivation as to what was in place on May 10th while we were processing and preparing a permanent ordinance, and that's still in process. A question that you raised, Mr. Stopper, was about the plants actually in the ground. That's not a requirement, and if you look at
Not a requirement.
N3 of the ordinance, that says that they must provide evidence satisfactory to the planning director that no later than May 10th, she has taken demonstrable steps toward the development of a commercial medical cannabis cultivation site on the parcel as demonstrated by the criteria described in either A or B below, and at least one of the criteria described in C through K. So that's the photographic evidence as well as other information. So they didn't actually have to have the plants in the ground. In fact, in May, most growers did not have plants in the ground. It was too early in the season. So what we're looking at here, and I'd like to ask Mr. Frank a question, was we have a bunch of pictures of pots and irrigation system, yet the aerial imagery doesn't show those pots on the ground. What happened to them? Where did they go?
Well, after you issued an order, they removed them. I can't explain why they're not there that day, but there was an order of abatement, and they got removed. I would like you to know they're all gone right now, and that's because of an abatement order that they took very seriously, and they went and removed them. As far as why the aerial photos aren't really quite good, I've just been hearing quite a few issues about them. And I want to say one thing, why don't you guys come on down to planet Earth and take a photo right where it is? That's what they did, and it's a piece of cake to see it. I think there's something wrong with the aerial issue. I don't really know what's wrong, but I've heard multiple other parties say it's all wrong. I will tell you that the way they did it was with a simple cell phone camera at ground earth, and it comes up clear as a bell on that day. And for the planning department to just say that's a lie, you got to wonder, how do we do this? That is showing readiness.
Nobody's calling anybody a liar. What
Well,
we're
they
doing-
certainly
what
are.
we're-
They check the
no,
box.
I
No.
would have to say that it does appear very misleading to us, which is the reason that we denied this application, that the imagery we found, which you can clearly see pots on the ground where there are pots, does not show any. And so, I don't understand why anyone would remove the amount of infrastructure that's shown on these photographs.
So,
These photographs,
During the peak of cultivation season.
So one of the things that I'm going to go back to, because you're saying that you're listening to some of these stories about how it's inaccurate on the Earth pictures, how do you explain the ones that are accurate that are moving through the process?
I don't know about those.
There are some that are
Okay, I don't-
accurate,
I'm sorry, I
moving
just don't
through the
know.
process. So the only ones
there
that
are
we are
people
being
that don't,
appealed
right.
by are the ones that don't look accurate. So we have, I mean, we can say, that's wrong, but then should we go back and look at the ones that were right and tell them no to? Or tell them, I don't get it.
I have a response, though, especially to your question, sir, is what he's now explained to me a little bit better, is that on May 10, you passed an ordinance that required him to remove everything. That was his interpretation. I got to take everything out. So I want you to know, when you pass an ordinance that says you can no longer grow there until you have a permit, he said, I think I need to remove everything. And that's what he did. Now, his understanding of the ordinance and what his obligation was may have been correct or incorrect. I don't know. But when there's an ordinance that comes out and says no cultivation until you have a permit, he's out there without a permit. And he's got a whole bunch of stuff all ready to go.
No, so May 10th, he applied, which made him, he had to apply by June 30th with his application and registration showing on May 10th that he was growing and had a garden in. And then the applications have been slowly moving through the planning department because this is a new process and we're gearing up and getting through it. And nobody had to tear their garden out until they were giving a notice of denial. And there is proof in one of these photos that you submitted in your packet that shows me that he went from empty pots to a full-grown stem that he recently cut out. So he knows he didn't have to cut that out until he got his denial, and he did, which, thank you for applying with that. But he didn't pull his garden out on May 10th. He didn't pull his garden out on June 30th. He pulled it out when he got his denial. So he was growing all summer long.
When did he get his denial?
September 2nd.
September 2nd.
September 2nd.
When did you cut out your
months
plants?
after these photos.
When we received the denial letter.
Right, so you complied the way that the ordinance was written. You did it right.
Yeah,
Yes.
so, but then like you guys offered us the application, right? Or we're pending. So that's saying that we
That
could
gave
grow.
you the right to grow during the pending period, correct, and
Okay.
that's what you
Yes.
did. That is
Okay.
correct. You did that right.
Right.
There's-
So actually, the ordinance is set up so that prior to having a permit, you can grow
But
until you're denied, which is,
the reason why the pot is not on the picture is because on May 31st, it was taken on May 31st. The ordinance passed on May 10th, saying that you need a permit to grow. So of course we took everything out.
You took it out on May 31st?
No, we took it out on May 10th when the ordinance passed, because I didn't know I was going to get a approval for a commercial license. So I took everything out. That's why it's not on the picture right there.
I think this is where some of your confusion lies, is that's not what the ordinance says.
This was his misunderstanding. I know what you're saying. And it-
Misinterpretation.
He should have kept
Okay,
it
so
there.
he didn't take the pots out on May 31st. I'm sorry, you didn't. You cut your plants on September 2nd.
Yeah.
So you didn't take your pots out May 31st. If you want to clarify that, I'm willing to listen, because right now what you just said doesn't make sense.
Okay. You guys said that we can't grow unless we have a permit to grow, right? And it
Registration,
passed-
we are not issuing
Yeah,
permits yet,
okay, yeah.
registration.
On May 10th.
Okay.
So that's what we did. We was afraid that we wouldn't get the permit, so we took everything out.
What date did you take it?
Oh, it was, I think after May 11th or the 12th, when the ordinance passed, so,
So you put the garden in late April,
yeah.
according to your receipts.
Mm-hmm.
And you set up 50 pots, had them ready to go. No plants were in it yet because it was too early in the season.
Yes,
May 10th, the county passed the ordinance,
yes,
and you were able to apply for an application by June 30th, which you did.
yes.
When did you pull your plants out? May 31st? Why would you pull your plants out when you were submitting an application? It doesn't make sense.
Because we wasn't sure we was gonna get it or not, so.
Okay,
if
when
we
did-
didn't want to plant the whole thing. we'll
Okay,
put it
when
all-
did you put the plants back in that you extracted on September 2nd?
I believe it was on June 1st, I believe, when we put everything in.
And these pictures were taken in mid-June that show nothing?
June 3rd and May 31st.
May 31st, so
Well, I have a question. You had all of those pots and the piping system and all of that in place in April. The ordinance passes May 10th. Did you have plants in those pots as of May 10th?
No,
So you never had plants in the pots until
No.
after June 30?
yeah,
Okay. Are you telling us that you removed all those pots and all that irrigation system and the water tank too?
not the water tank.
water tank's still there.
The water tank never moved?
Still there.
What did you do with all the pots and the piping that you removed?
We just took it home.
You don't live on the property?
No, because in the ordinance, it says that you can't live on a property.
That's correct. Unless you're a permanent resident.
You see, some of the problems here is the ordinance is a little tricky. You gotta have a mobile home there, but you can't live there. But you gotta live there. And if you don't live there, if you live there, it sounds like you're violating a different ordinance.
That's not what the ordinance says. And that's not really a question here, is whether or
Right.
not substantial investment and disturbance of the property was made prior to May 10th towards the cultivation of marijuana,
And
demonstrated by the pictures and other supporting evidence.
And may I please state the investment, lease contract, $35,000, permit approved, $5,000, that's your fee. Wake Board, paid Water Board, $10,000 on September 6th. Paid natural investigation, $8,990. And this does not include the cost of all that you see out there, but I do have receipts in this package at one of those pages. So this is a lot of money, as you can
Okay.
see. So it's not small change by any means.
So that is a part of the process. By September 7th, he had to apply to those places, and I understand that. Before us today on the Planning Commission, we have been given an appeal, not on those issues. Our appeal today is, was there a grow going on the property on May 10th?
I don't think so.
That's what's before us.
This gentleman just explained to you that you have to show that you're ready to grow. You don't have to actually have growth.
Okay.
So I want to please, I hope
Okay,
he's
So
right.
the pictures that were submitted show us pots on the property in preparation for going. But after the fact, we see nothing. So that's where our conflict is coming in at.
And he's explained that once you pass a law that says you can't grow till you have a permit, he removed it.
We don't have
That's
that
not what the
law.
law says.
Well, he apparently misunderstood it. So that's what happened there.
If you look at the picture that's up there, the aerial image, can you point out where those pots were before he says he removed them?
Can you describe that? Where?
It was right next to the fencing post, like from the black all the way down, all the way to the left side, the upper right side.
There's two little black dots there, is that the water tank?
Yes, sir.
And so the area around or near those tanks, was that graded before May 10th?
The area around, no, that's exactly how it was up there.
So you didn't have to do any grading to put the pots there?
No, because everything was already ready to go. It was leveled and everything already.
Well, who did the leveling
The owner, the landowner,
before you got the lease?
yeah.
And why did he do that?
I don't know.
Was it in preparation for a cannabis grow?
I have no idea. We just renter, so.
What's the date on this?
I think the owner would have to answer that one.
There's two.
What he knows is it was ready to go.
There's 2 dates on the
And
license. 'cause
I would just like to point out that the photos
what's
he's
partially
shown
questioning is the legal option is-
show that he is ready to go. And I really think he's demonstrated that. The question is, are his photos accurate on 4/22/2016? And I ask you to say that they are. I don't know how you get to the bottom of that. I mean, they doubt it, and he says they are.
Well, you agree that the aerial photo does show the correct area?
If there was discrepancy on where it came
Yes, that's the right
Okay.
area. Yeah, that's the right area.
And the ordinance requires you have to show that there were demonstrable steps towards the development of the cannabis cultivation site on the parcel. And one of the things you can show is evidence of grading. We have evidence of grading, but we don't have evidence that that was done for the preparation of a site. You see the problem I have?
You know, what happens here, though, is he's got, I would like you to just look at everything else he did bring out there. It was already excavated, so there's no reason for him to excavate it a second time. And the fact is, it is excavated. So look at what he's done and ask yourself, is that substantial enough? Look at all the stuff he brought out there. He was ready to go. And he's got his water source, he had 2 mobile homes up there. He's ready to do everything that your ordinance requires. And it was timely. I think this is an appeal, you should give him another chance at it. You can bring everything right back up there and do it properly.
When did you put the water tanks in? I didn't see receipts
It
for
was
that.
already there,
It was already there?
yeah.
Okay, so the picture shows 1 water tank, but that shows 2. Did you bring in an additional one?
Yeah, the other one we brought in,
When did you bring that in?
I,
Do you know?
no, I don't know.
You don't know, just say it.
Yeah, I don't remember the date on that one.
Because that makes a big difference, because these pictures are dated 6/3, and by May 10th, I'm looking at the photos that you submitted with the pots everywhere, with 1 tank.
It's somewhat unfortunate that you pulled them out with the confusion on the permitting. That's where I think there's a lot of question here, because if you would have if those are on the subject property, if you would have deconstructed those, we would have had proof that you were set up prior to May 10th. Because we need to substantiate that through the planning department, through aerial imagery, as part of the process that was been presented us by the urgency ordinance. So, in my opinion, everything that would have helped you out, you deconstructed yourself. So this is where we're having a lot of confusion here right now, trying to substantiate whether those were actually pictures of the subject property. You could say that there's a lot of confusion on whether the property is right with our aerial imagery, and you can call in question. Well, I can call in the question that when you took your pictures, why didn't you get a GPS pin dropped on where you took your picture from at the same time? I mean, we could go back and forth there all day. I see the major problem in what you're presenting to us is, unfortunately, you're saying that you deconstructed all your evidence that would have supported your claim because of your confusion on the way the urgency ordinance reads. And the way we understand it and the way we have to follow it to a T, you need all that evidence there so that we can grant you your appeal. But at this point, I'm having a hard time differentiating from that because you in fact, everything that would have supported you moving forward, you physically deconstructed. So at this point, I kind of see like you're saying that you took apart everything that was supposed to help you move forward.
I have one response to that, if I may.
Okay.
He may have gotten it wrong, as you're saying. He should have just left it there. Fine. He made a mistake on that. I got a question, though. how clear is your ordinance? When you say you can't do this without a permit, to me, you know what, as an average guy, I would say, don't do it without a permit. And don't doing it, it means don't do it. So his interpretation was, I want to follow this law. They tell me I need a permit now. I'm going to take everything out until I get a permit.
If you want to read through that part right here, I have it. And it doesn't say tear everything out if you don't have a permit yet. It's very clear to me, the way I read it.
Does it say you don't have to tear everything out just because you don't have a
Only
permit?
time it says I think you have to abate is if you receive a denial from the planning department. It's the only way I've read it so far and understand that you have to abate.
And that's exactly
You're
what he
correct.
did on September 2nd. He
That's
abated once he
right.
got the notice. He read the ordinance, he followed the ordinance to the T. He got his
I see.
notice of denial, he abated on September 2nd. He understood that part. So
I see a lot of conflict there.
and when you say how clear is it, well, there's over 700 commercial applications that we're processing. I haven't run across an appeal yet where someone else tore out their garden. So I don't know how clear it is. To me, I've hopefully read it inside and out too many times.
Is it the position of this county that unless you qualify with this pre-growth, pre-cultivation rule, you cannot get any kind of permit to grow here? Is that the...
We're not issuing permits, we're issuing registrations currently, because 2000...
But it's a permit. I mean,
Okay,
without that, you can't do
and
it.
what we have in place is an urgency ordinance. It is not a permanent ordinance. That is something that's being worked on. So I don't know what the final picture is going to look like. Today, I know what I'm dealing with. Today, I know what I'm voting on. I don't know what my future looks like.
So in answer to the question, yes, it's a position of the county that unless you were cultivating or had prepared the site for cultivation prior to May 10th, no new cannabis cultivation is allowed.
That is how it is as of now, but as you point
Right.
out, later that could change.
That could change next year, it could change in 2 years, as
I
far as I know.
hope everybody knows, and I realize you're not in charge of passing any other ordinance, but I hope everybody does know, and especially people who are all against this, that this has been one of the biggest economic boons in the United States in the last, 10 years. And if you look at what happened in other states, revenues were up way more than they had ever imagined.
So is crime. So it needs to be thoroughly looked at, it needs to be thoroughly vetted, and we need to make sure that we can protect the people in our county. So I understand what you're saying, but we need to look at this slowly, carefully, and meticulously when we're making these decisions. We have an urgency ordinance now, and we will look into the future.
Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the county does permit personal and caregiver grows, even if they weren't cultivated
I
prior
think your May
to.
10 ordinance made that illegal. That's
No,
what...
that's correct.
It's only the commercial grows that you have to have had either a grow or done grading and so forth prior to May 10th.
We do allow commercial or a personal grow up to 100 square feet or a caretaker for up to 200 square feet.
Here's the issue I'm having, Mr. Frank. Looking at this ordinance, which we're strictly bound by, it says the registrant must provide evidence satisfactory to the planning director that no later than May 10th, he/she, that means the registrant, has taken demonstrable steps towards the development of a commercial medical cannabis cultivation site on the parcel, and then there are two mandatory criteria. Date-stamped photographic evidence of grading and/or earth moving commensurate with the area proposed to be cultivated. Now, that's what's missing here, because when you just take these pots in the system and you put it on an area that somebody's already graded, not you, I don't think you satisfy the criteria that's set forth in the ordinance. The other alternative is date-stamped photographic evidence of cultivation, which we clearly do not have prior to May 10th. And so just looking at the language of this ordinance and accepting and assuming to be true everything that your client has told us about the pots were there on this site and the piping was here on this site, but it was on a on a piece of ground that was already graded for purposes that we don't know what it was. And that, when I read the ordinance, does not qualify.
If I may,
That's the problem I have.
if you look at those photos right there, that's ready to go. That is a demonstration of readiness. There's one other thing I should put into the record here, just so you all know. Besides all those pots and the fences and the watering system and everything else you've heard about, there's one other thing that makes him ready to go, is that these folks, I don't know how well you know the Hmong people, but they're natural farmers. And you know, some people are natural farmers, some people aren't. They are total farmers. They know how to farm. And they know how to do it properly. You look at that, it's not a mess. It's not some criminal enterprise like some of these people are worried about. This is a real farming operation that he spent quite a bit of money on, and that unfortunately is just being shut down because you would like him to have a GPS mark on his photo. You know, I can tell you in court, I don't need a GPS marker for photos to get them in. If I have a photo and an authenticating witness, they come in. I don't need a GPS marker.
So neither do we then.
What's that?
Then neither would we for their submittals.
Well, I can tell that you're believing their submittals, so that's fine. But I would just point out that if that's not enough, your ordinance is completely, unduly impossible. Because look at that, that's a lot of stuff. And he's ready to go, you can tell. And I'm sorry he made a mistake understanding your ordinance, that he had to take it all out. That's his error. I'd like you to allow him to fix that error and put it all back. It's all still in a safe spot. He moved it out of there, and it's easy for him to move it all back in. So we would ask that you allow him to do that. That's all we have. Thank you.
Any other public comment on this item?
Mike Falvey, Mountain Ranch. A gentleman approached the lectern and talked to the commission, I think on the first appeal, and he said that a couple of citizens were wasting your time and our time out here by saying what they were saying. Well, I can apply that to a lawyer coming up from Sacramento and preaching about reefer madness and how backwards we are with our laws by not making a bunch of money off this. I can apply that to this appeal. He's wasted my time talking about reefer madness. I saw that back in 1966, laughed at it then, I laugh at it now. So, that gentleman told these two ladies they were wasting our time. He's wasting our time, okay? Thank you.
Marty Crane, Valley Springs. I just have a question. First of all, thank you. We have some rules we're working through, and in the interest of fair and equitable treatment of all parties, I so appreciate that we're getting into the details and staying with the law or the rules and regulations that we have as they stand today. But I have a question. We see the pictures and they're date stamped, and I remember some time ago, totally different subject, someone mentioned about Google Earth and how they could zoom right in on your property, and I went, oh, well, you live in the country, people got to stop running around naked now, you know? And they went, oh, no, it doesn't work that way. And I went, oh, well, that's nice to hear. And they said, I don't know if these pictures work the same way or not, but they said it's not instantaneous when you zoom in. Those are pictures that were taken at a certain time. And so the dates on here, is that just the date that you pulled them in, or is that actually the date that is that like a second in time, like right now? A picture for right now, and do we know that for sure? I don't know how that works, so I'm just asking.
That's actually the date the satellite flew over the area.
Flew over the area?
Yes.
Which would be how often?
It depends whenever Google Earth wants to publish it. It depends on cloud cover, atmospheric conditions.
So, I don't want to throw a wrench in the fire or anything, but so the picture on June 3rd, it might have been a picture on June 1st when the satellite flew over? That's what I'm asking.
No, that they put the
Isn't that what you
date up.
just said?
No.
No. Okay, explain that to me.
All right, so basically, a satellite revolves around the Earth, and every so often it makes a revolution around a certain spot.
Okay.
So in this instance, in this spot, it happened to be May 31st.
So the date on June 3rd isn't necessarily the date that you pulled the picture down, it's the date that the satellite flew over?
Yes. And just to
Thank you.
clarify, the
That's
picture
what I
on the
wanted.
left, that's not a Google Earth picture, that's
Oh,
a
well.
county aerial picture.
Oh, okay.
So that's
And-
from-
And is that a county aerial picture is just like the second in time, actually that date?
Same process, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify all that, because, thank you.
You're welcome.
I would ask you to reference and incorporate everything that I've said before in opposition to a permit and support of a denial as to partial 004 as well. My name is Mike Stone. I would add that I'm in favor of sewage treatment plants. I'm in favor of nuclear power, and a lot of people are not. But I wouldn't necessarily want to have one of those next to my property. And people might understand if I said having one of those next to my property would adversely affect me, my property value, my ability to get a loan, etc. I was here once before when there was a hearing with reference to parcel 001, and another gentleman that wanted to grow commercial marijuana on parcel 1. I've seen in these photos a lot of evidence of grading on these parcels that was done since all of this started. At least 3 large water tanks on the order of about 2,000 gallons, dozens of grow pots, allegedly at different points, were on some of these parcels. My point there is simply a lot of money's been spent by somebody in a short period of time with very large trucks going on tractor trailers, hauling graders up there and out, water tanks up there, grow pots up there, and the gentleman asserts that this is all legal money. That's wonderful. That's great. That answers one of our concerns. Then, of course, he could supply planning with a financial package that shows you where that money came from and confirms, documents the fact that it was all legal money. I saw Reefer Madness about 30 years ago, and frankly, I thought it was hilarious. I don't care what anybody does inside their home. I really don't. Please don't do it and get on the road with me. And what I'm concerned about up here is the filming of a new movie, Cheech Marin burns down the countryside while they're doing some of this grow operation. And with that, I don't have anything else to add on this one.
Thank you.
Want to state my name again?
Yes, please.
Rick Polk.
Can you say that again, please?
Rick Polk. You can look on there if you want. I'm not on there. And I'm sorry to think that you're wasting your time, but once again, on this issue right here, number 3, the April 21st thing, can you put that picture up? Now, you know, you don't have a GPS stamp on that, but it's very easy if he could take you to that spot and possibly show you that dead tree, the trees on the left, to verify that that was taken on that thing. On your little information booklet on what it takes to grow, it is a little sketchy on that date, after May 10th, because you were having meetings in April, 2 or 3 of them, and didn't know what you were going to do and what you were going to do. And for some people to have something that large, they were hesitant about not having an approved agreement to put that in the ground. Why? It may show up with the federal government, we all know, since it's classified as a Schedule I, it's a serious issue to some people, especially in the South. But once again, the issue here is that right? I believe that you don't have to have no plants in the ground. May 10th would have been early for that elevation up there. I'm guessing it's about 1,500 feet, be a little cold. Okay, I'm personally a caregiver. Okay, couldn't put mine in the ground because I was afraid of it coming to my house, even as a caregiver, because there had to be a pending inspection. As of today, haven't been there. It's okay, I know you're busy. You had over 900. You guys do a great job. I talked to you, I talked to the lady before. helped me out at the thing on any questions I had. But nowhere did they ever say, put them in the ground, it'll be okay until we get there. That was never said. So I believe there's a little fear factor.
On
You know, and-
caregiver, there was no reason you couldn't if you had the proper licenses.
I had the proper license, you got copies of them and everything.
Well,
I mean,
then
that's what,
that
but you
wasn't-
still, it's still written in there of the pending thing, and then I was only gonna have 24 hours to pull everything out. Not a big deal with me, only got 12 plants, you know? That is a concern is all. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, that was what affected him, but I'm not saying it was sketchy, but it was kind of, you know, if it wasn't pending. And that's the pending, the accept, approved, now it's approved. There's 3 phases for the planning commission, right? You know, and there's still a lot of them verified, I believe is what number 2 is, you know. So anyway, back to the date stamp, if that is a true stamp, I can't see where the gentleman had to have the plants in the ground, because that is early. You could have the clones, I don't know if you know the whole story, they'll have in the smaller pots.
It's not about the plants.
Well,
It's
I thought
about,
somebody had said something about.
it's about we're seeing this set up on the land in these photos.
Yeah.
But we're not seeing it in overhead views.
Right, which, and
That's
I'm only
where the
going
issue
by,
is at.
from what he
Sure.
said, he took everything out. I mean, that I don't know, I'm not gonna call anybody in here a liar.
But, no, none of us are.
You know,
That's not
but
what we're
on
here
that
to do.
day, if that date and that piece of property right there and that stamp, then he abided by everything on that paper you asked for. Whether he took them out afterwards or not.
But okay, so thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Once again, Beverly Baldinger Valley Springs. Our learned counsel here made it very plain that these people are intrepid farmers. They've got all this put up there. Why does it have to be marijuana? Why can't it be corn, peas, beans, something that could be used as food when we're so short on food instead of marijuana? Because the money's not there. It's only about the money. It's not about what's benefiting anybody. It's only about the money.
Do we have any other public comment on this item? If not, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to maybe sort of frame the question a little bit here. The ordinance, as we discussed, clearly requires demonstration that either cannabis was previously grown on the site or that substantial evidence was provided to show that they had made demonstrable steps towards preparing the site for cultivation. We based our denial on the fact that it did not appear to us that the pictures that were submitted represented the site, because when we looked at the aerial photo, that they weren't there. And perhaps discussing with the applicant before taking the denial to find out, to clarify that might have changed our recommendation. So the question before you then is whether or not you believe that the evidence that was provided by the applicant showed that there was steps taken, so let me make sure I get the language right here. They're taking demonstrable steps towards the development of a commercial medical cannabis site on the parcel, either with date stamped photographic evidence, upgrading and/or earth movement commensurate with the area proposed to be cultivated. I think it's clear that there is an area that was cleared, not necessarily by this gentleman, but the prior owner, but there's an area that was graded that could be used for cultivation. And that was part of what the board's concern was when the ordinance was adopted, was a lot of grading going on, a lot of new people coming in and just plopping down gardens, grading willy-nilly, cutting down trees, and we wanted to put a stop to it. Clearly, the site had been graded. The second test then is, was it for the intent to be used for cultivation? We have pictures that show pots somewhere. And this was a question that we had. They did not appear to be on this site. And so I think the question before you is, has the applicant, the appellant, demonstrated to your satisfaction that those pictures represent this site? Was there other information in the application packet which included the receipts? We have a number of receipts for various materials for cultivation. There's nothing that necessarily ties that to this site. And that's the difficulty that we had in approving this application. So that's sort of what's before you now is, yes, there was grading that had occurred prior to May 10th. I think that's pretty clear. Was there substantial investment into the site that would warrant granting the cultivation registration? And that's I think, the question.
So for me, I'm struggling because I'm looking at the pictures and I'm seeing 2 water tanks. I'm looking at his pictures and I see 1 water tank. For me, he says he pulled the plants because of the way that our permitting or registration process was going. But yet, he grew the plants because in separate evidence here today he submitted to us, he harvested that plant. So if you pulled the plants but then replanted the plants, the argument of, I thought that's what I had to do is very difficult for me to take in. Because you pulled all that out and then you put it all back on what purpose? I'm kind of struggling with all that. If he had pulled the plants and not put them back in and had been before us with an appeal saying I pulled them because I didn't think I could keep growing, I would say, wow, I'm really sorry that you misunderstood. You could have had your grow go on all summer. But the fact that I'm being told I pulled them out, but then I was brought a picture here today showing me that I cut them out, once the planning department gave them the denial, I'm struggling with that. So I am probably going to lean towards upholding the planning commission's department's decision. And if they want to further research this and take it to the supervisors on appeal, that's the way that I would see it going for me.
I'm having a little difficulty with how to interpret the ordinance. I am willing to accept that there was grading prior to May 10th. It seems to me obvious that there was. I'm willing to accept the applicant's explanation as to what happened to the pots that are shown in the April photographs. Problem I'm having is this ordinance doesn't say putting out pots qualifies you. What it says is the registrant must provide evidence satisfactory to the planning director, which is going to be another one of my questions, that he or she has taken demonstrable steps, not somebody else, not some previous owner, toward the development of a commercial medical cannabis cultivation site on the parcel. And one of those things is date-stamped photographed evidence of grading and/or earth moving. That's it, grading and/or earth moving, not putting out pots, not putting out water tanks. I don't see that this qualifies under that interpretation of this ordinance. That's where I'm at now. But my other question is, does the planning director take the position that he has provided evidence satisfactory to the planning director that he meets the ordinance? Because if that doesn't happen, I don't think it qualifies either.
At the time that we denied this application, I was not satisfied. I'm unsure at this point.
And I would also say, and I think I read this, but to emphasize it, it says the registrant must provide evidence, not somebody else. In other words, we were suggested we should go ask the landowner why he graded. That's not our job. It's the registrant's job to provide the evidence. So at this point, I'm inclined, albeit somewhat reluctantly, because I think this applicant was perhaps going overboard, trying to follow the ordinance as he understood it. But I'm inclined to uphold the denial of the registration.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but if I could make a request, in light of the director's idea that maybe it should be re-examined.
I'm sorry.
I would request that you table a vote and have them re-examine it. basically like remand it back to them. He just said now he's uncertain. If he changes his mind, we don't have an appeal, we don't need an appeal. I would ask that it go back to planning in light of the planning director's comments. I would point out, as much as you might think it's clear, I don't know how clear it is, but the planning director should take, he's willing, it sounds like, to take another look at it. I would ask that you use your discretion,
Okay,
which
so-
I think you have to do.
We're deliberating right now. Come back to you.
Okay, are there any other comments from the public?
You have some
I
comments?
think it already closed.
Wait, we're not going, we're deliberating, we're not going to public.
We're still deliberating.
Okay.
I have, I see a lot of evidence and pictures of actually getting ready. But at the same time, I could have moved forward with this, but there's a lot of conflictual information coming, what seems like to me, from you and your lawyer. First, you tell us that you yanked them out May 11th or May 12th because you were afraid that you didn't have a permit yet, you didn't want to get in trouble, Schedule 1, everything, that's what you said was your worry, and because of misunderstanding of the way the emergency ordinance reads. Then you come back later and tell us September 2nd that you actually cut down the plans. And that's with the, I may be off by the September 2nd, but sometime in September you actually cut down some plans. And I sat down, I listened to you this whole time. And that's why I asked about the pot that was showing with the thing. And when did you cut those out? And evidence, I see a lot of evidence. Do I know where it is? No. You took it out with our follow-up evidence, so we can prove that it was still there. I could almost go with the pictures, but you provided me some doubt into everything as to what you have said, what you've actually done, because you've actually conflicted what you've done with your own words. I'm just having a hard time with that. I could lean towards actually thinking that possibly you had the evidence here to do it, but you've placed more doubt into my mind as to whether, the evidence you supplied with your own words.
Any other comments from the commission?
Well, if the way I'm reading this ordinance is correct, I just don't see the evidence that this registrant did the grading that's required by it. And so I appreciate Mr. Frank's suggestion that the planning director take another look at it, and maybe that's the way to go. But if my reading of the ordinance is correct, I don't see how it could be, the registration could be granted.
Is tabling really an option?
Yes, I believe you have the right to refer it back to planning staff for additional information.
I know we've asked this question before. I know there's been, I didn't research it personally, there's been an opinion from Mr. Sirius in our office that tabling is actually not permitted. So that was an opinion from our office that I haven't, done my independent research on, but that question came up in the past, and that was the answer that I got from him.
I'm going to have the reading.
Staff recommendation is to,
Is everybody ready for the recommendation?
Well, the resolution hinges on the failure of the June 3rd aerials to show the multiple pots that are depicted in the April 22nd photographs. To me, that's been explained. And so, and I said I'm willing to accept that explanation. What it doesn't show, what we don't have, is that registration hasn't provided evidence of grading or earth moving as a step towards development of a commercial medical cannabis cultivation site on the parcel, nor has he provided evidence of cultivation prior to May 10th. To me, that is a proper ground, and I think the only proper ground upon which to uphold a denial.
But that's not written here, right?
It's not in the it's not in the resolution
Analysis, yeah,
as,
resolution.
but I'm suggesting we need to change the resolution, in my opinion, if we're going to uphold the denial to a basis that I think does find support in the facts here and in the language of the ordinance.
I concur on that, definitely, because it doesn't, that's where the confusion is on the pots here. I think whether we know whether these are on that property or not, he shows significant evidence there that these pots are here. But the ground for denial would be elsewhere that's not written on the resolution as is.
That's how I see it.
May I please object to any amendment to the resolution today? We're here for one, and it sounds like it's not quite right. You say this, the county council's opinion is you can't table something. I rather doubt you can just amend right now.
Yes, you can amend right now. That's my advice to the planning commission. We amend
May I
resolutions all the
submit,
time.
if you can amend now, you ought to be able to table it as well, because that's an informative amendment. So
Right.
if you can do that amendment, why can't you do the other one?
I'm not going to argue it with you. That my advice to the planning commission is that you cannot table, but you can amend. Planning commission, I think, is required to actually come to a decision. Planning commission can continue if it needs to, or it could issue a modified resolution, or it could, affirmatively accept or reject it.
So a continuance?
Well, I would suggest that we modify the resolution as I read in substance, and I would make a motion that the resolution as modified be approved.
And what do you want that motion to read?
I want it to read in substance. The first sentence stays the same. And then it would read in substance. Say that the registration did not provide date-stamped photographic evidence of grading and/or earth moving as a demonstrable step towards the development of a commercial medical cannabis cultivation site on the parcel, nor was there date-stamped photographic evidence of cultivation commensurate with the area proposed to be cultivated.
What number are you reading under the ordinance with that, Kelly?
It's 17.95.165 N3.
Could the resolution just read, the registrant failed to provide evidence pursuant to that section of the ordinance?
You could do that.
Okay.
That's
which I pretty much attempted to paraphrase.
Was that a motion?
Yes.
It was, okay. Is there a second? Is the motion going to die of lack of a second?
There might be. I'm reading the resolution again just because I can make that apply for me. So what he's doing is adding additional. Okay, I'll give you a second, Kelly. We can add that to it.
Does county council have the new version?
So I guess would the new version be, this would be finding number 1, registrant did not provide evidence satisfactory pursuant to 17-95165 N3.
That's in substance the same as what I said.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
That's in substance
Okay.
the same as what I said.
It's been moved and it's been seconded.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So originally, we sent them a denial letter. But this was not part of the denial letter that was sent forth to them. So at this point, when they put in their appeal, they did not know that they had to defend this position. So I agree with what Kelly's propositioning, but at the same time, we aren't giving them due course to be able to present evidence to the contrary
So
on something like this.
You're saying that the denial letter was not attached to the
Application.
staff report. So I didn't see the denial letter.
Right.
You're saying that the denial letter didn't say that the basis.
I would like to see the denial letter.
The two boxes checked on the denial letter read inadequate evidence of cultivation activity before May 10th, 2016, and false or misleading information. Those were the reasons for denial. It further said, Section 1795-165N3 requires that the registrant provide satisfactory evidence that no later than May 10, 2016, demonstrative steps had been taken towards the development of a cannabis cultivation site on the subject parcel. Date stamped photographic evidence of cultivation commensurate with the area proposed to be cultivated is required to be furnished as supporting criteria. The valid application has been established given that although submitted photographs dated April 22nd, 2016 clearly depict a cannabis cultivation site with a minimum of 29 plots of modified fencing material. However, an aerial image acquired by the county on June 3rd, 2016 of the subject property does not confirm these plots and materials were on the property prior to May 10th.
Well, then I suppose the question for county council is, can the commission uphold a denial on a basis that is not exactly the same as the planning director employed when
Or
he
that they
rejected
put
the
an appeal
application?
on.
Well,
Sorry.
so I guess it would be up to the planning commission to determine if the language that was described in the denial letter was adequate to put the appellant on notice of what he had to defend. And that would be a determination for the planning commission based on the evidence in the denial letter. And if no, then there could be a continuance to allow for preparation of the defense. Or, you know, I mean, you have a lot of choices, or you could uphold the appeal Or you could, you could continue it for a different resolution, but the only thing that you cannot do according to our office is simply not take action and just table it.
Right,
Or
so,
kick it up to the
so,
board.
so a motion of continuance and a vote majority would be,
Yes, you could do
would
that.
be
if you
a position, and it'd be the same thing as tabling it.
So I guess I interpreted tabling as, because
Right.
as taking no
No
action,
action,
just
yeah.
kicking it up.
I
or
understand
not-
what you're
or
saying,
not
but
moving
it's
it forward.
technically comes to the same end as tabling it. It's just we have to vote as a group.
Yes, I mean, if you wanted to continue, to allow them more time to defend.
I think we have a first and a second, we have to vote on that, but I wanted to bring this question up at this time just because I would be more in favor of, personally, a motion to continue at this point so that everyone can get their, everything in order properly. And I think that's applying the appellant due process at the same time, because in my opinion, although I agree with Kelly about the grading, I don't think that was part of the denial letter sent forth to them. So therefore, they haven't had a position to defend on that, on a vote for denial.
And definitely the planning commission would have jurisdiction to do that, if
Okay.
it wished to.
Just thought I would bring that up before we vote on that for you all.
So you're suggesting now that we should vote on on Kelly's,
Well, we already have we already have it moved and seconded.
Yeah, right.
So at this point, we were gonna vote on that, and then if that doesn't go through, then I would make a motion to continue with this on the grounds that I just spoke with our council on.
okay. Is everybody ready for that motion?
Would you like to say anything before?
We already had the first and second on
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we need a vote now.
Right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
No.
No.
Opposed? No. No. That.
So let me get this
that
correct.
motion died?
He made the motion, you seconded it, and then voted no?
Yes.
Okay. So how many no's do we have?
3. And I'm going to make a motion to go back to the original resolution because as I read it, the way that it's written, I believe that it's correct. I understand what Kelly was doing, and the reason I seconded it is because it was an additional piece of evidence. But I don't think we need a piece of additional evidence to uphold the planning department's decision. And if between now and then they want to bring more evidence and the planning department wants to do further research and they appeal it to the supervisors, they can see it there
So you're making a motion,
to uphold the planning department.
okay.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
What was your vote, Commissioner Alred? What was your vote, Commissioner?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So can I make
So
a,
the motion passed 3-1. This action is appealable within 15 working days to the Board of Supervisors. And the motion was denied based on the original resolution in the packet.
Thank you for taking time to hear us. You're still open to look at it again, though, am I right? I thought I just heard her say that. Well,
Yeah, that's what you just said. In 15 days, you can reappeal it to the Board of Supervisors of the county and bring it forth to them.
we want to go back to him, though. That's what I want to know. Can we go back
That's
to
not
him?
the action that the Board.
No,
the
you have to
Commission
take it.
took. They denied the appeal.
Can you look at it again, though? Just, we just come back to you. I'd much rather do that.
but the board, there's a rules in the county code about how the appeal hearings have to be undertaken by the board, and I would recommend that you take a look in the county code at the rules and limitations for an appeal to the Board of Supervisors. It is a de novo hearing, but they can't accept new evidence automatically. There are some limitations with respect to accepting any new evidence that anybody would bring forward, whether it's the appellant or whether it's the planning director. So take a look at that, and that'll tell you the parameters.
That's why I would prefer going back to him and
Right.
redoing it. So-
But that's not what was just voted on by the planning.
I'm just wondering if he didn't lose jurisdiction over it by the virtue of this appeal.
I believe he did. I believe that the planning commission just took action, and that they just have jurisdiction to make a decision. They decided not to kick it back or continue it, and that was their vote.
Very well, thank you.
Since we have not taken a break, can we skip break and just go to lunch and come back?
Certainly. Is that a motion?
I'm requesting that we break for lunch.
Okay. So we'll break for lunch. We'll be back in 1 hour.